Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. Today, guys, I want to talk about The Flash Season 7. I want to talk about the season overall, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I wish they would have done differently, or even better. We're going to talk about the arcs they went through this season. We're going to talk about some of the characters, some of the episodes, and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I can't cover everything in this video. If I did, it would take forever, and I probably would still miss something. So understand that going in here. Let's first start off with the fact they had to start the first 3 episodes of this season, wrapping up Season 6. As we know, they spent the first 3 episodes of Season 7 dedicated to wrapping up the Season 6 storyline they had started but could not finish due to the fact that they had to shut down production of Season 6 because of the pandemic. Now, 3 things I want to mention in this little part here. Number 1, I don't fault them for having to do this because they had no other choice, okay? They could have went the route of just forgetting all of this and just moving on to something else, but that would have been really bad on their part, so they spent the first 3 episodes wrapping it up. Second thing is, even though I can't fault them for having to do this, I do fault them in a sense for how they approached it, because the majority of these 3 episodes were not that great in my opinion, and definitely episode 3, which is Mother, the wrap-up of the storyline, it just felt kind of flat. It just came out of nowhere. It felt really, really rushed, even though they had spent these extra episodes wrapping up because they had to do it. But I kind of wish they would have had a little bit more time, maybe even another episode or 2 to kind of help flesh this story out to wrap it up properly, in my opinion. And number 3, the highlight is obviously episode 2, when Barry is basically losing all of his emotion and Frost injects herself with that Velocity 10 and becomes a speedster and runs around the city fighting Flash, using her Frost abilities and being a speedster at the same time. It is so freaking awesome. I cannot get over it. I wish they would come up with a reason for it to happen again, because I just want it to happen again. It's freaking amazing. Starting with episode 4 all the way to episode 11 covered the next arc, which realistically should have been the beginning of season 7 if everything went according to plan, but of course it didn't, with season 6 being shut down, which is the next arc, God Complex, aka introducing us to new forces on the show, The Flash. Of course, we had Strength Force, Sage Force, and Still Force. Now, I was starting to notice as this arc was continuing on that people were dropping off the show, or they weren't caring as much, or they really weren't watching when it aired live, or they really weren't like jumping to the next episode, like getting excited each week. They were just kind of like, I'm losing interest. The way I kind of approached it, and you guys saw it in the reaction videos, is that I really went that direction of, well, how they were doing it as well in the show, that Barry and Iris were seeing it as these are kind of like their children. So I was going the direction of, well, kids, if you make dad happy, he'll take you out for some ice cream. Like, I was just playing that up like a lot, because I was just like, I'm not really feeling this, but like, I want to keep going because I don't want to drop off the show. Like, it wasn't to the point where I was like bored and tired. I was just like, I wish this could be better, but it's not terrible, but I'm not like overly excited for a lot of this. And some people had a lot of issues with this arc also as well, because Speed Force Nora, the embodiment of the Speed Force, was getting a little too over the top, and she was getting more and more evil, it seems, and it turns out it was another thing entirely. It just felt kind of odd. They were making her like kind of like a villain. People were getting kind of frustrated with it. So I'm kind of glad after this arc was kind of wrapped up that they kind of turned her back to normal and everything was fine. But it was just like, okay, so I guess like they just need to have a villain in this, because they really didn't have a plan for, you know, them. Like, they were all kind of villains in a sense, but then they were kind of shown the light, if you will. So I guess they had to figure out something in a sense to where we have to have a villain type. So let's make it the Speed Force. I don't know. I just wish it could have been handled a little better. And of course, this was the introduction of probably the worst character in the Arrowverse, at least one of them, at least, Kramer. I cannot stand this character, and I have a little more to say about her once we get to the Godspeed arc later on. Episodes 12, 13, and 14 were not really considered part of an arc. They were included in an interlude before episode 15, the start of the Godspeed arc. Episode 12 was Cisco's goodbye episode, his send-off episode. Episode 13, the Cecile-centric episode. And episode 14, Allegra-centric episode. Now, Cisco's episode where he got sent off in episode 12, I thought it was pretty solid. It was lighthearted, it was funny, and I thought it was a great way to send off his character, even though he showed up in the 150th episode, you know, later in the season, even though that makes sense that he does. But still, it's like they have this big send-off, and it feels like he's not going to come back, you know, within this season. He might show up in season 8, but who knows? But he showed up pretty quickly. I mean, there were some episodes he was gone, but still, it's like, I thought they did a pretty good job sending him off. Now, the Cecile-centric and Allegra-centric episodes, Cecile, okay, that episode had some okay moments, but overall I was getting really bored, and I felt the whole storyline of her taking the mask of a psychopirate or whatever, it felt like too little too late. It felt like they should have done this when they introduced him in Elseworlds, because he didn't show back up in Crisis like everyone thought he would, psychopirate. So why are they waiting till now to cover a storyline involving his helmet? It just didn't really make sense. And then the Allegra-centric episode, I was bored out of my mind. I ranted in that video that I made. I was just bored. I really didn't care. I was only watching it at a certain point just to see how much more just like blah can it get to where I just don't care. Like I was losing interest completely, but how much more, I'm not sure where I'm going to be cutting this into, but what I'm trying to say is that Allegra-centric episode really turned me off, and I was getting so frustrated, and thankfully the next episode and the Godspeed arc brought me back and was helping me, okay, this is why I'm watching the show, because of good storylines and interesting storylines. So thank you so much. But the Allegra-centric episode, please, I really wish that didn't exist. The final 4 episodes of Season 7 were dedicated to the Godspeed arc. Now, the more research I look into people talking about the Flash Season 7, and specifically the Godspeed arc, people seem divided, it seems, for the most part on this. Whether they liked all of it, they liked some of it, they wish they would approach it differently, or they were indifferent to it and they just couldn't care and they were ready for the season to end, basically. For me, there was a good amount of stuff that I thought was pretty interesting in the Godspeed arc, particularly to the fact that there were clones of Godspeeds turning on each other because a certain section of clones of Godspeed did not want to die when they completed their mission, because that's the whole point, is when they complete their mission, they die, they cease to exist. And the other clones of Godspeed were just doing what they were told by their creator, the original Godspeed, so that's why there was this Godspeed Civil War. The highlight, I think, in my opinion, for this Godspeed arc, besides Godspeed himself, because I thought it was pretty interesting how they were handling his character, there were some things I wish they would have done differently with his character in terms of his motivation and everything and what they did with his character in this arc, but there was just, I think, a lot of pretty solid stuff. But the highlight to me is Bart and Nora Allen, specifically Nora coming back, a new Nora, even though it's the same actress and everything. She seems pretty much the same Nora, but having Nora return and then having Bart officially being introduced, and I thought that was definitely bringing up the quality of the show, at least in terms of the storytelling and character moments. And having Jay come back, having John Wesley Shipp come back as well, was really awesome as well. I'm really hopeful that Bart and Nora stick around, or they're hanging out or whatever, because I don't want them to go away in season 8. I want them to stick around and hang out and be a part of all this. I really hope so, but I'm not really sure. But I really enjoyed when they popped up. One huge dislike that I was not liking in the back half of season 7 is involving, yet again, Kramer. They brought her back after she left for a couple episodes, and I got so frustrated. And then out of nowhere, they had her using the Speed Force to save Joe, which Joe needed to be saved, but not by her using the Speed Force. And it turns out she's a meta herself, even though she was against metas this whole season, and wanting to use the courts as a way to basically force metas who are arrested and go to trial. They are forced to take the cure. She is herself a meta and can mimic anybody's abilities that are around her. And people are questioning how she was able to do that with the clones of Godspeed around her. But anyways, like taking the Speed Force. But yeah, so I really hope she doesn't come back. But apparently Eric Wallace, the showrunner, is teasing and hinting that she may be coming back pretty soon in season 8, which I really don't like at all. I do not like this character one bit. But I'm just one individual. But for me, I just can't stand her. I just don't like how they approached handling her character and how she was so aggressive and against everything, which I guess you need that kind of character to go against everything that everyone's kind of agreeing with, metas and all this kind of stuff. You have to someone who goes, I hate metas and all this kind of stuff. And they explain the backstory. I didn't care. Another thing I was noticing about this season, and it has nothing to do with the showrunner or the writers, it's the fact that you can tell this was a pandemic filmed season because of certain things they were doing within the show. They were making sure early on there was not a lot of people standing around each other. They were making sure that it was very well known that there is not many people around, and just the way they approach certain stories, it's just clear that they just didn't have a lot of time to really introduce a new character, even though they had some new cast members in terms of the God Complex, aka the New Forces. But you get my point. There's just a lot of things that you notice from past seasons of The Flash in terms of how they handle and approach certain storylines. And then here, you can just tell they're writing around certain things so they don't have to do it because they can't physically do it. And I feel like they could have maybe found a different way to approach how to write that in terms of making it not seem like it's obvious they're staying inside a lot more than normal. But that's just me personally. But like I said, I can't really fault them too much. It's something I just noticed. But it's something to where, as I was watching the show and noticing certain things like that, that I have to just kind of let that go, because it's not really their writing. It's like, because they have to do certain things a certain way. They can't do anything. They can't do certain things how they used to. They have to write it differently because they can't do certain things because of how filming is restricted now, in a sense. Let's talk about the finale, shall we? A lot of people were posting clips of the lightning saber fight between Flash and Reverse Flash versus Godspeed. It is from the comics, but there are certain things that I don't think translates very well from comics to live action, and I think this didn't really stick the landing. It definitely was a different approach to a fight. I'll give you that. But the more I think about it, it is interesting at times. It's pretty cool, this whole idea, because I love Star Wars, but I don't know. I think it would have been interesting, maybe, even though we've seen it a lot of times with speedster fights, I think it would have been interesting to show how strong Godspeed is with him running around the city fighting both Reverse Flash and Flash and taking them on, and him not really having an issue until the end where they find a way to trick him. But I don't know how you would approach that, because they've done a lot of speedster fights over the years. I'm not really sure. So this approach definitely was interesting and different, but maybe it could have been handled differently. I'm not really sure what it would have been, though, besides another speedster running around the city fight. But I don't know. But they tried something different, and you got to at least applaud them for trying this. You know what I'm saying? Even though it may not have had the impact that they were hoping. Reverse Flash. Two things. One, a lot of people were having issues with how they first revealed Reverse Flash, because the first real indication that he's in the scene is in Star Labs. You see on the monitor they have a hub, and you see like the names of Godspeed and the Flash, and then Reverse Flash, and then you see Reverse Flash. They should have just showed him instead of showing the monitor in Star Labs to indicate, oh, there he is. There's his name popping up. But other than that, I mean, I think his appearance was pretty interesting. And I think the reveal of where Barry is actually faster than Thawne, I think, is a good indication we're going to see Thawne again. And I do think they're going to end the final season of The Flash. Whenever the final season is, it's going to end with Reverse Flash. I think you have to do that. It started with Reverse Flash, first season Reverse Flash, last season Reverse Flash. It just makes so much sense to me. Now, obviously, I could talk more about particular things and certain moments that I wish were different or better, but I would be sitting here all day, and I really don't want to do that, and I don't think you guys want to be sitting here all day as well. But overall, I feel The Flash Season 7 handled some things pretty solid, but I kind of wish they would have just handled the majority of the God Complex storyline, aka the New Forces storyline, those episodes, differently. Or maybe just do a different storyline entirely, but they seem like they were just like, we have to do this. We have to introduce these new forces. It's going to be interesting, and some of it was. Psych was the one I think that stood out the most out of the others, but that's just me personally due to his abilities. But I'm hopeful that Season 8 will be better. We're starting off with 5 episodes involving a crossover type event, so I'm hopeful that it'll be better, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. But if I had to give a rating out of 10 for The Flash Season 7 as a whole, not thinking of individual things, but of everything that the season did, I would have to give this season a 6.5 to a 7. I have to think of all the positives that I actually enjoyed from this season, and think of everything, of course, all the negatives and everything. I mean, Kramer, I can't stand that character. I really didn't talk too much about Allegra, even though I said the Allegra-centric episode was boring. But I could have talked more about Ultraviolet and everything, how I could not stand her character at all, and I really did not care that her character died, but that's just me. But like I said, overall, I think a 6.5 or a 7 is a pretty solid number for Season 7 of The Flash. I'm just hopeful that Season 8 would be better, because I think it deserves it, in my opinion. So what did you guys think of The Flash Season 7? What were some of your highlights? What were some of the things that you disliked? What were some things you would have done differently? What were some things you wish they would have done instead of what they actually did? Whatever thoughts you have, guys, let me know in the comment section below, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out.